Okay, this is a very important video. We're going to be talking about a bird's eye view strategy of the product launch formula as a whole. We're going to be diving into all sorts of tactics in just a little bit, but I want to talk about this strategy as a whole because obviously, if you get the strategy wrong, it doesn't really matter what you do, in terms of implementation or execution. Okay, so let's break down. There's really, to me, three different types of launches, and it's all based on your ultimate, on what your goals are, right? The first one is what's called, I call a sprint launch. The second is a kickoff launch, and the third is a home-based launch. And I'll explain what each of these different launches are and what they mean for your business, okay? The first question that you need to ask yourself whenever you're doing a product launch is, are you creating a product or are you creating a true business? Okay. Again, it ultimately depends on what your goals are. Sometimes you're going to create a product just to help generate an influx of capital for your overall business. Sometimes you're creating a product which actually is in itself a full business. Okay. So let's break down those three different launches. The first one, what is a sprint launch? The sprint launch is your primary goal is to generate a quick cash injection. Okay. The second goal is to build a list of buyers. Okay. We do this all the time to help fund longer term evergreen programs. Okay, so normally a sprint launch has a very short shelf life. Maybe you're only just going to launch it for a few weeks or for a month and then try to get as much cash or revenue as you possibly can, and then you're going to reinvest that money into longer term projects. Okay, so a good example of a sprint launch would be capitalizing on a market trend. Okay, I remember when Facebook ads first came out, or maybe a year or two after they came out, Facebook, what are called UID scrapers, were a massive trend. Everybody was loving it. They were converting super high. Basically, it allows you to scrape Facebook IDs and then target them in Facebook ads. Okay, and the market was loving it. People were just coming out with different scrapers every other day, it seemed. They were capitalizing on a market trend. Okay, the downside of this was that Facebook updated their terms of service and they banned UID scrapers. Okay, so all of these people that had scrapers, the product stopped working, which means that the customers paid for a product and it doesn't even work anymore. Okay, so you have to be careful when you're trying to capitalize on a market trend. Okay, sometimes it can backfire, but sometimes if you're in the right place at the right time and you create a product and capitalize on that market trend, it can be a great sprint launch. Okay, and like I said, this is potentially to fund other long-term projects. Okay, it can also be to confirm market demand. Okay, you might do just a really quick sprint launch just to confirm that there is a market for the type of product that you're going to create. Okay, so here's an example of how a typical sprint launch would work when it comes to revenue. Okay, say you're going to launch in April, you're going to see a massive influx or a massive spike in April revenue, and then it drops quickly down, and then usually the next month it's next to nothing, and then usually 2 to 3 months after that, you're basically flatlining. So again, this is not necessarily a sustainable strategy if you're trying to create a business, a long-term business. Okay, but it can be a means to an end. Okay. Now, what's a kickoff launch? Okay, a kickoff launch, the primary goal is to confirm market demand to build up long term. Okay, so this is to help seed funding for growth and maturity, right? So this is a short-term launch in hopings that you will be able to make this a long-term project, right? We're trying to kick this off with a bang, get a lot of money in the first, week or two, hopefully generate hundreds of thousands or even $1 million in sales, and then reinvest that money properly into building up that product more of a long-term business. Okay, so you're creating an initial following, you're building initial momentum. Sometimes it starts as a one-time payment and then it switches over to a continuity model. Okay, so that's what a kickoff launch is, and normally you see this type of revenue trend where you see a big spike in the first month, then it drops down, but then things start to pick up slowly over time, and then you could maybe do a version 2.0 launch, which then spikes, a version 3.0 launch, and then over time the product has evolved into something very big that you can now sell as a recurring subscription model on the front end. Okay, Then, what's a home-based launch? Okay, the primary goal here is to create a funnel of new customers into a proven long-term continuity program. Okay, so typically the front-end product has a low price point or a low entrance fee. Okay, and the ultimate goal is to get people into your flagship program on the back end. Okay, so all we're trying to do is create lots of new customers. Obviously, that front end product should be relevant to your flagship program, but ultimately we're trying to get them into our continuity program. Okay, so we're just setting them up. Maybe it's a $10, $27, $47 price point, and then as your one-time offer, or maybe as a back-end webinar, that's when we're going to try to convert those one-time payments into a continuity subscription. Okay, and this is how you can really start to create an actual business. Okay, this is what a business is based around. So this is an example of what a revenue stream would look like for this type of home-based launch. Okay, you get a nice spike from that launch, and then it continues to go up because for each launch that you do, more and more people are funneling into your continuity program, and you continuously start to rise up. And this, to me, is ultimately the best of all worlds, right? Being able to do a combination of all three of these launches where you're getting a nice spike in revenue, you're getting people opted into a subscription continuity program, and you're building long-term sustainable revenue. Okay, so it's really important to understand what are your primary and your secondary goals for the launch. Don't rely solely on one launch model. Okay, because if you go to one extreme or the other, it can really have a backfire effect. Okay, and I'll give you an example. So, when I first started, I was doing launch after launch after launch, and I was doing mostly one-time payments, right? I wasn't doing any continuity, and I was just getting obsessed with the idea of, oh, I can launch this product, I can make 300,000. I can launch this product, I can do 500,000 in sales, right? And at the end of the day, you'll just burn yourself out. Okay, there needs to be a long-term play in mind. Okay, now if you take the other extreme where you're trying to go for just continuity, okay, sometimes you need to walk before you can run. Okay, you need to crawl before you can walk. You need to be able to put you need to be able to build. You can't. It's hard to just go from having nothing to all of a sudden having a $197 a month continuity program. Okay, so sometimes it needs to be built up over time. Okay, and sometimes you need to build a relationship with a customer with a $27 price point and then lead them into your continuity. Okay, so I like to have a mix of all three of these types of models. Okay, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Okay, but if you can blend these, this is what's going to help mitigate your risk as an entrepreneur, maximize your short-term and long-term growth. Okay, so very, very important stuff, guys. Like I said, throughout the rest of the course, we're going to be going through tactics and things like that. But this is a very important strategical video that I wanted to shoot.